Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into some new research out of Johns Hopkins University that tackles a huge mystery in psychedelic science.
You know the stories, right? One person takes psilocybin and has this profound, life-changing experience. But then you hear about someone else, and for them, it's just terrifying. A total bad trip. So what gives? What's the hidden variable here that makes these experiences so radically different?
All right, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the big puzzle. Then, we'll get into a major clue found right inside our own personalities. After that, we'll see how scientists actually investigated this, and then wrap it all up with what this means for the future of therapy. Sound good? Let's go.
Okay, first things first. Let's set the stage a little. The fact that a psychedelic journey can be so wildly unpredictable, well, that's been a tough nut for scientists to crack for a long time.
So for decades, right, the go-to explanation has been set and setting. You've probably heard this. It's all about your mindset going in and the environment you're in. But what if that's not the whole story? This new research suggests there's a third, and maybe just as crucial piece of the puzzle, and that piece is you.
And that's exactly where this new study comes into play. It points a finger at one specific, fundamental personality trait as being a huge predictor for how a psychedelic trip might actually go.
And that trait? It's called neuroticism. You might have heard of it. It's one of the big 5 personality traits from the 5-factor model, which is, this widely accepted framework for understanding our basic, long-term emotional patterns.
So the easiest way to think about this is like a spectrum, right? On one end, you have high neuroticism. On the other end, you have its opposite, which is high emotional stability. It's basically a scale for how we tend to react to stress and negative feelings by default.
Okay, so how on earth did the researchers even test this idea? Well, instead of doing a small, super-controlled study in a lab, they did something different. They went out and gathered a ton of what they call naturalistic data. Basically, data from what's happening in the real world. They put out these 2 huge online surveys and got reports from almost 3,000 people. And they asked each person to describe their single most challenging experience with psilocybin. I mean, this gave them an absolute treasure trove of real-world data to work with, something they'd never really had before on this scale.
And here's the clever part. They didn't just ask people, hey, was it a good trip or a bad trip? No way. They used a specific scientific tool, the Challenging Experience Questionnaire, or CEQ, to break down what a bad trip actually is. It measures it across 7 different dimensions, things like fear, paranoia, grief, even feelings of isolation.
And when they crunched all that data, the result was crystal clear. The higher a person scored on neuroticism, the more intense and the more frequent their challenging experiences were. It was a direct link.
But, this is where it gets really interesting. This discovery, as big as it was, actually created a bit of a scientific puzzle. Why? Because it seemed to fly in the face of some earlier, well-respected research.
See, other analysis, ones that looked at data from controlled lab studies, had found 0 link between neuroticism and having a tough trip. So, what gives? How can both be true?
Well, it all comes down to one word: setting. In those super-controlled lab studies, you've got this incredibly supportive environment, right? Trained guides, a calm space. It all acts like a buffer, basically masking the effect of personality. But the online survey, that captured what happens out in the wild, in the real world, without all those safety nets. And that's where the link became so obvious.
Okay, to really make this idea stick, let's try a simple analogy. It'll make this whole relationship between personality and the trip experience super clear.
So just imagine, a psychedelic journey is like being out on the open sea. The experience itself is the weather. It could be beautiful and calm, or it could turn into a massive, turbulent storm. The key thing is, you don't get to choose the weather.
Now your personality? That's the ship. It's the vessel you're in that has to navigate whatever weather comes your way. It's what gets you through it.
So someone who's high in neuroticism, they're kind of in a less sturdy ship. It's just more likely to get tossed around by big waves of fear or paranoia. But someone who is more emotionally stable, they're in a much sturdier ship, one that's way better equipped to handle the turbulence and ride out the storm.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. Why does any of this actually matter? Well, as psychedelic-assisted therapy starts to become more and more of a real thing, this research has some pretty huge implications. Think about it. A lot of the people who could benefit the most from these therapies, people dealing with depression, anxiety, addiction, they often tend to score higher on neuroticism. Now, this research isn't saying we should screen those people out. Not at all. It's saying the exact opposite.
It suggests we can make the therapy safer and more effective for them by giving them more personalized support, better preparation beforehand, and more time to process and integrate the experience afterward. It's all about making sure the ship is as sturdy as possible before it ever leaves the harbor.
So what this research really does is it opens the door to a much more personalized, tailored approach to psychedelic medicine. And it leaves us with this really important question to think about. Could it be that understanding the person taking the journey is just as important as understanding the journey itself?